One is with respect to the county solicitor. Are we able to reduce our legal costs that we pay externally by keeping some of those costs in-house and having the county solicitor prosecute those matters? So it is an ongoing service improvement work that we look at in the POA operation to keep in mind our expenditures, how we can better allocate court resources and still have a positive outcome from the revenue side of things. We are a little bit resource shy last year because we had some staffing issues, so we didn't spend as much time on collections as we should be, and that is one of our primary strategies this year, is a continued focus on collecting those aged receivables. And I believe Mr. Johnson wants to add to my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Arlington. Mr. Arlington, you pretty much mentioned everything that I was going to mention, but this is a really good example. As we were moving forward through the budget book, it's a really good example where, yes, we have the 2017 forecasted actuals. However, that tells a story for 2017, and the 2018 story may be a completely different one. So using the salaries and benefits as an example, Shelley mentioned that there was a staffing issue related to that, and therefore that's why the budget for 2018 is a little bit different. So while it's a good temperature check to look at the forecasted actuals for the previous year, there's just a little bit of caution there because there might be a completely different story for the 2018 budget.
I'm wondering, Mr. Mayor, if we could pull services up on the screen here. Maybe it's time to dig in some weeds here. We haven't done that yet today. I'd like to see that because basically you had a budget of 227, ended up being at 250. Pretty much everything on this board is out of whack. So I'd like to see what services that have been cut to bring it down the $44,000.
Through the Mayor, while Finance is bringing that information up, I can speak to those questions. Generally speaking, the driver in services is with legal services. So we have overspent with legal services for prosecution. I've already advised Council that we see some improvements with the county solicitor for reducing the cost of legal services. In addition, we've made changes to our court scheduling and court utilization that effective on February 1st. We will be holding court 3 times a week rather than 4 times a week, which would drive that cost down as well. But if you are looking at the services lines, I can go through the increases and decreases for the proposed 2018 budget. So we have a $1,300 increase in equipment rental. That's with respect to a court scheduling computer that we use in the courtroom to schedule OPP officers to attend court. We see a increase of $2,000 in auditing services. That is for our year-end financial services team to come in and audit the books with a third-party auditing firm. We have a reduction of $10,000 in adjudication services, and that is basically due to court utilization efficiencies. We have $300 decrease in quality assurance, and that is a service provided by the Ministry of Attorney General. We have a minor increase in advertising of $300, and that increase is so that we can further increase on a various different methods to promote our collection strategy. We have a reduction of $1,500 in contracted services because we are now preparing transcripts and court monitoring information in-house rather than sending it to a third party. We have a reduction of $1,500 in computer software services because we haven't implemented in teleconferencing for interpreters. We have a reduction of $2,000 in collection agency fees that we are paying, and that's based on the 3-year actual. We have a minor increase for the CPI of training and development of $100, and we have a $700 increase in membership with our Municipal Court Managers Association.
My screen's blank, Mr. Mayor. I can't really write that down that fast.
I guess just for my clarity, you're asking specifically on the POA budget, the service line, and you're really looking, are trying to determine why the budget we approved last year at 227 is basically forecasted that it'll be some $23,000 more. Is that a fair statement of what you're asking?
That is, and then it comes back and it's going to be a reduction. So they weren't able to come within budget last year, and now they're actually expecting a budget reduction. See, these type of variances, when it's out that far, should be in a report that's easy to read for council. We shouldn't have to go line by line to see the big ones where you get blown away in the actuals. But, you know, a budget I get is a budget, but you can't be making up numbers either. And this one, it's pretty loose.
Well, there is a variance, but I don't think anybody's making up the numbers. I think simply there's been a number of items that have come in over cost that you couldn't predict what happened throughout the year. And I'm not trying to answer for you, but Shelley, I think you gave us some answers there on why that actual is higher this year, correct?
That is correct, primarily with legal services.
Have you really responded, and I was listening, as to why you're then dropping it back to 216? I think that's a reasonable question. That you're actually dropping it when in fact it's even lower budgeted this year than what it was last year.
That is correct, and primarily because we're going to have in-house legal expertise
okay.
to
Yeah, I think
complete
you said that,
prosecution.
but my
And the other piece is the court utilization. Reducing court from 4 days a week to 3 days a week will reduce expenses.
Okay, Mr. Brunton?
Shelley, can I ask you how, going down to 3 days, have you expanded the hours or something, or so was it sitting vacant 2 days now, those two courtrooms?
Through the mayor to Councillor Brunton, we looked at our utilization stats, and we feel that we can schedule tiers in a given morning better over 3 days than we can schedule it over 4 days. So oftentimes we will have court being held and it will end at 10 o'clock in the morning rather than going till noon. So we feel we can schedule it better over 3 days and reduce some of the expenditures that we're paying.
But the courtrooms sit empty for 2 days.
That is correct, through the mayor.
Any other service that can be provided in them?
Absolutely. That's on one of our divisional or department priorities this year, is to look at other areas that require hearing rooms. There's been a number of inquiries from tribunals that are interested in using our court facilities. Now with court only being scheduled 3 mornings, it gives us 2 full days to be able to book it to other parties and pay a fee and assume a revenue.
Okay, and just going back to the fine recovery, how many agencies do you have recovering or working, outside agencies working on recovery?
Through the mayor, we went out to competitive bid, I believe last year or the year prior, so we're currently in a contract with 2 firms, and we actually make them compete for our files against one another. So the better you perform, the more files we give to you.
Okay, and the $6 million that's out, you said a lot of them now are not going to be recovered. Can you, I know it's maybe a hard exercise, but can you get rid of them? Can you write them off and forget about it, or how does that work? Because I look at that $6 million and I see dollar signs, but I guess I'm just imagining things really, right? So.
Through the mayor, I'll pass it over to Mr. Johnson. He'd like to speak to the matter, but we can't write him off until someone passes away.
Oh, really?
Ms. Darlington's correct. The only thing I wanted to add is that $6 million, even though it's in our budget book and you see it in the financial statements as well, it's not in our actual accounting of our books. It's not an accounts receivable item on our balance sheet.
Anything else on employee and corporate services? And we can come back to any of this if you find something. I would like then to turn to page 4-40, financial services. That is the summary page, but before we start, I'll turn this over to Mr. Johnson for any comments if he wishes to make any.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a nominal increase, 1.7%, or $42,000 on average, rounding. A couple of the major items you can see under salaries, it's a little bit more than a typical 2% increase. Part of that is because of a small reorganization that we did in finance where we looked at some of the FTEs and we've changed our job descriptions a little bit so that they're earning a little bit more pay. And this directly relates to trying to provide financial statements in-house. And once we're able to do financial statements in-house, we should be able to see a savings in our audit fees as a result. The other item, the 14,800 increase related to services, that's offset, of course, by the reduction in legal fees. However, the majority of that is our contract with the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Much, Mr. Johnson, page 4-39, 4-40. Any questions on this department? Mr. Oliver, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To James. James, we kind of breezed over the NBI for the student position this morning. I guess I'm puzzled by both the budget for it versus the FTE. It's showing as a 0.35 FTE, which one would assume the third of a full year equivalency, and yet you're only showing a budget of $10,500 for that. How many weeks of the year would this student be employed typically?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Oliver, typically we budget for 18 weeks.
So okay,
Yes.
18 weeks, all right. Okay, and you did give us a brief overview, at least in terms of some of the benefits, I guess, that you saw of allowing this as another, at least partial FTE to be added to the complement. I'd like you to just recapture that again briefly, if you don't mind, because I'm uncomfortable with the FTEs that we're adding potentially over and above the 12 that we've already approved by council.
I'd be happy to. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Oliver. So the Finance Division has not had a student for quite some time. And we actually employ 3 full-time employees who were finance students at one point or another. And they've been really good employees that we have. And I don't think we would have been able to employ them if it wasn't for having a finance student position. The finance student also brings, in my mind, I've worked with finance students in the past, they bring a more dynamic atmosphere to the area that they're working in. And it's also an opportunity for a full-time employee to mentor the student, and there's back and forth positives as a result of that. So I firmly believe bringing in students either as a co-op or something similar benefits the Finance Division as a whole.
Thank you. Other questions? I'm going to move on. Take me back if you need me to go back. Please, let's go to Health and Social Services. Summary is on page 442, 443, and I think, sorry to delay things for a second. James, I do have a question back on page 4-40. I meant to ask you and then I completely forgot. Page 4-40 and 4-39, up in the middle of 4-39, main budget drivers, economic, in other words, your increase in salary and benefits is 63.8, but down on page 4-40, it shows 74.3. Are those supposed to line up, those two numbers? I'm just...
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's a good question.
Well, I'll leave that with you.
Well, it's an easy answer.
Pardon?
Sorry.
Oh, you have an answer, sorry.
So if I understand your question correctly, yes, the budget driver did have the salary 63,800. However, with the with the new budget initiative of the student. You add those two together, and that's how you get the 74,300.
1,000.
Correct. You're welcome.
Fined $11,000 through typo, apparently not, so I'll move on back to page 4-42 and 4-43. Ms. Miranda, I'll turn it over to you, please, for some comments if you wish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start today by acknowledging that there's a couple of, actually 3 pages that have been circulated for Health and Social Services. The one is a pictorial of the realignment of the QPAP department, just so we can walk through that. And there was an oversight in the public health budget, so there is a replacement summary both for the overall summary for public health that we'll get to after the Health and Social Services budget, and also the program-based grants summary that will be part of the public health. Today staff present to Norfolk the Health and Social Services Division, which includes social services, social housing, Norview, and public health. Presented today is a gross budget of approximately $57 million for social services, social housing, and Norview. The Board of Health will be done, as you know, under separate cover. The budget has an overall increase of 0.5% to the levy and a total increase of $48,900. In 2017 into 2018, the ministerial mandates and reforms of transformation and modernization focus on better access and an integrated system to improve the customer experience, deliver high-quality care, and to increase accountabilities. We are well on our way to implementing the many mandates in 2017 into 2018. This does not happen, however, without significant change and strong commitment from all staff. I'd like to take the opportunity to extend a sincere thank you to the staff for their dedicated services to our community. A special thank you to the leadership team and finance who have spent many hours to prepare this budget submission to maintain the service levels and to maximize the funds provided to us through the respective ministries. Overviews of the divisions are within your packages with many highlights of accomplishments in 2017, along with the drivers for 2018, so I won't bore you with the detail, but happy to answer any questions. Just a few main drivers for the budget being presented, with Health and Social Services holding over 40% of the staff, including 10% from public health of Norfolk County's FTEs. The salary and benefits increases based on economic merit increases approved by council is obviously a key driver. Norview has several operating capital requirements included in the final including the final stages of some cart bed replacements, loading dock ramp, and LED replacement lighting. The final year of the uploading for the OW client benefits is also a driver for this budget, and the decrease in housing provider payments related to the provincial formula. As I said earlier, those are just a few. There are many more. With a changing landscape, a few of the divisions' a review of the divisional's organizational structure has been undertaken. With an enhanced focus on quality, planning, performance, and accountability, the QPAP division was developed to maximize the shared services, to improve efficiencies, and leverage the expertise across the division. I want to reinforce that the QPAP is a realignment of FTEs, and we remain FTE neutral, not including the county-approved initiatives and NBIs. The QPAP utilizes 4 cost centers. In front of you is a pictorial of the QPAP and cost centers to demonstrate the realignment, and we'd be happy to answer any questions related to that realignment. You will see that several positions were shifted to the QPAP department and respective cost centers, which have significantly increased other interdepartmental charges, which include salaries and benefits. This will be very evident when you look at the public health interdepartmental charges. I'd like to just remind you as well that facilities maintenance has been transferred to Public Works for the GAB building, so there has also been some realignments there. Staff respectfully remind Council and the Board of Health to consider that changes such as recommended reductions in the budget have compounding impacts to the levy for health and social services programs due to the cost-sharing funding and the cost-sharing with Haldeman. As a simple example, if I may, for OW, in a 50-50% cost share, compounded with 60-40% roughly Haltom and Norfolk cost share. If we reduce the program expenditures by $1,000, the most we will save from the Norfolk County taxpayer rate, or the levy, is $287. And we would potentially return $500 to the province. In other words, to reduce a true $1,000 to the taxpayer rate, and the true reduction would be $3,359. This is further compounded in funding programs of 75-25 split, or 100%. Additionally, if the funds are not utilized and or matched, funds must be returned to the province, challenging Haltom and Norfolk to maintain those funds in subsequent years as they are then distributed to other communities. At times, a reduction has no impact on the levy, but may have significant impacts on the funding and the services. Staff welcome questions of Council so as to advise Council of the implications of your recommendations within the cost sharing, but more importantly, the potential service delivery implications. And with that, staff would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Marlene. I am going to, based on the fact that you're looking for an increase of 49,000 on a $9.2 million budget for these departments, I'm going to open it up for all 5 departments right through to the end of the tab, which is Norview Lodge on page 457. So I'll let you just kind of go through that and jump around if you will. I think we can handle that if there are questions here. And I realize there's your bosses are all here to answer questions. So I'm going to open it right up. Councillor Brunton?
First question I have is, I got 2 sheets handed to me. They were both the same, but Councillor Black and I sorted that out. But one says page 2, and I think, can you explain to me where these fit in here, Marlene, please?
Yeah, through the mayor, those are actually for the public health, so if I can ask you to put those aside for right now. They are under separate cover, and we will refer to them once we reopen the Board of Health.
Well, what are we dealing with right now?
We're,
I thought you said we were going to deal with it all.
no, we're dealing with the tab, which is the health and social services. Public health is down a ways. And I have already, those are the sheets that were handed out this morning?
No, I just got 2 a few minutes ago.
Yeah, these are for the public health, so we're not dealing with public health at this time.
All right.
So set those
these
aside,
two
we'll
are-
deal with them later.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. That answers that question.
Okay, yeah. Okay, Councillor Oliver?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My first question relates to the new budget initiative on page 26 of our special document that has NBIs and council-approved initiatives.
Page 26.
Yes, yes, and it's the customer service representative at the Dunnville office. I've read the explanation, and I understand that. I guess my question to Marlene is, this is within one of our cost-share programs with the province.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, and I see we're anticipating $23,200 in provincial and federal grants to offset part of this cost. That's there on page 26. I guess my question is, Marlene, is this one of the programs that is at the 50-50 cost share that it is supposed to be at, or is it one where the municipalities are paying more than the 50% share we're expected to?
Through the mayor to Councillor Oliver, it's a little bit more complicated than that, so I'm going to ask Ms. Van Dyke to comment, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Oliver. In Ontario Works, we have the cost of administration budget that is 50% paid for by the Ministry of Community and Social Services and 50% paid for by the municipality. That budget is capped based on the number of benefit units that we have participating on the Ontario Works program. We are actually under our cap right now. Last year we were under the cap by about $89,000, which means that we could have accessed $89,000 additional provincial dollars if we had been able to secure the matching municipal funds. So we have room within the 50-50 cap to be able to access those 50-cent dollars from the province to offset the cost of the customer service representative for Dunnville.
Answers that, Mr. Mayor. May I ask another one while I'm on a roll? Thank you. This is on page 29 then, and it still relates to Heidi's program, I think, and this is the Affordable Housing Resource Coordinator. Again, it's a new budget initiative, therefore would create a new FTE from the looks of it, permanent. And once again, I see the provincial funding that's showing here of $79,600. This is within a cost share program, and is it currently being funded at 50-50?
So, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Oliver, this is a different funding structure.
Yep.
So in housing, when we receive funding from the province for programs, we are allowed to keep a certain percentage for program administration. This position that's being proposed is to directly deliver our affordable housing programs that are funded by the federal government and provincial governments, either through the Investment in Affordable Housing Program, the Investment in Affordable Housing Extension Program, or the Social Infrastructure Fund. So what we are proposing to do is bundle the administration funding that we get to pay for this position. So it's there's not a cost share or a cap. It's one of those programs that the province gives us administration funding to be able to use for purposes like this.
So in other words, this position, should we agree to allow it to go ahead, is being funded 100% out of senior government funding.
Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you.
Further questions? Mr. Columbus?
Yes, on this last one that Councillor Oliver queried, do we not have somebody doing this at this time already, Heidi?
So, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Columbus, 5 years ago, social housing was successful in obtaining approval for a new budget initiative to transfer the administration of the central waiting list for social housing from the Housing Corporation to the Housing Division. We took that position, so when it sat with the Housing Corporation, its primary function was to manage the central waiting list on behalf of the service manager. When we took that in-house, we partnered with it, so we maintained that function, and then we added on additional job duties, which at that time was one affordable housing program, the Investment in Affordable Housing Strategy. Since then, the federal and provincial governments have really greatly increased their investment into the affordable housing program. Not into our legacy social housing, but into affordable housing. So that's where we've seen a real expansion in that part of our work to now include the extension program and the social infrastructure fund. And with the announcement of additional federal investments into affordable housing, we know that there's going to be at least one additional new affordable housing program coming online, and potentially 2 or 3. So that piece of the portfolio has grown significantly in the past 5 years, and it's no longer a workload that is appropriate for just one FTE.
Okay, thank you for that.
Anything further? Okay. I would suggest we do a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and put Mr. Baird on the spot for a while. Let's have a break. Thank you.
Stop doing all the stuff in Portover and I can save us millions.
On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger along. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger along. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk.
Okay, what I'm going to do at this point is not go to Chris Baird just yet. I'm going to follow the agenda before us and recess the Norfolk County operating levy budget session and recess it and open now the Board of Health budget session. So if you get your 2018 package out with some of the additional sheets that we were just given. Marlene Miranda, when she is ready, I'll get her to get us started here on this document, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor has requested, those two summaries for public health that were put before you a little while ago are to replace page 2 and page 6, if I may.
Yes.
So public health has had an overall gross budget of 10.1 million and a net levy increase of 16.7%, which is the new summary that's before you this afternoon. It should be noted that the main driver is the increase of the MOH that was approved by the board back in June at 7.3%, or Norfolk's impact is $96,800. If we remove that levy increase, the increase to the public health budget is actually 9.4%. The other main drivers include the Public Health Inspector NBI, which Ms. Taylor will speak to shortly. And again, with public health holding over 10% of Norfolk County's FTEs, the salaries and benefits increases based on economic and merit increases approved by council is a key driver, given that most of what we do is provided by staff. It is important to note that staff have prepared the budget on the assumption that the funding formula remains at a capped budget that was implemented in 2015. However, the province has since advised that the provincial funding formula reallocation across the province has been maximized and funding increases should be realized for this budget year of 2018. The Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care has provided the 2018 funding grant guidelines. Staff are pleased to advise that staff are preparing the annual service plan and budget submission with 10 allowable one-time grant applications, which has been historic, but more importantly, for the first time since my tenure and several years prior to that, this is the first time there's an opportunity to submit requests for base funding to a total of 10 additional base funding grants. For Haldeman Norfolk to realize the 75-25 cost-shared funding to the base funding, a grant just shy of $1 million will be submitted as a one-time, as one of the grants, which will include the additional county-approved initiative for the MOH. That'll be one of 10. We are optimistic that we will realize an increase in an overall base funding and additionally one-time grants. The board will recall that we were successful in 2017 with some of the submitted grants. Great efforts have been taken to maximize funding to ensure the 100% funding programs are within the allocated funding, and reductions in all controllable costs have been realized. Staff will seek direction from the board of any service delivery reduction, as further reductions to this budget as it's presented will require reduction to services and staffing. At this time, staff will be happy to answer any questions, but before I do that, I'd ask Ms. Taylor to address the previous questions from the board related to the NBI under the Public Health Inspector, and also the TEO questions that were asked previously by Councillor Sonnenberg.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the Board of Health. I'll speak first to the proposed new budget initiative for a public health inspector. To ground the board and remind the board that routine services provided by the public health inspector public health inspectors are mandated in the regulations, and they have a number of serious impacts to our community. They impact on public safety when we think about inspections like safe food and safe water for recreational and drinking water, rabies investigations. They impact on the ability for farms to secure the necessary labor when we think about our temporary farm worker and bunkhouse inspections. And they impact on tourism and business when we think about special events and recreational camps. The issues facing the environmental health team in 2018, in addition to the ongoing need for inspections, we do have some new requirements from Service Canada that does mean an additional 200 inspections of bunkhouses. And if we are unable to deliver those inspections in a timely manner, then what that does is it puts at risk the ability for farmers to secure the labor that they require. We also have new requirements from the modernized public health standards and protocols, and that includes the requirement of public disclosure. That has implications on training and documentation requirements. And then finally, we have the ongoing issues with hydrogen sulfide and methane, and we anticipate that these will continue through into 2018 and beyond. We have conducted a supply and demand analysis of our public health inspection services, and conservatively speaking, we require a total of 11 public health inspectors. We currently have 6.5. The new budget initiative that is within your package indicates a request for an additional public health inspector. And with that, I'll pause and answer any questions about public health inspectors before I move to tobacco enforcement.
Thank you, Susan. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Susan, for that explanation. I guess my question I'll direct to both of you ladies, two parts. First of all, to you, Susan, you said, given our population, just your last comment, we should have about 11 FTE equivalent public health inspectors.
That is correct.
That would be, how could we describe that? Is that not a provincial standard, but a provincial guideline in terms of the level of service?
So what we've done is we've done a supply and demand analysis that looks at what are all of the requirements, how many inspections are required to meet that mandate, and how long does each inspection take.
Okay.
And then we factored in travel time, documentation time, and those sorts of things.
Okay, so there isn't actually if you like, a provincial guideline that says if your population is this many and you have this type of diverse community, i.e. rural and urban,
Right.
you should have. It's not that, it's an internal analysis you did.
It is, but it's
Okay.
based on those standards.
All right.
So thinking about, for example, we know that under food safety, there are some that are high risk and they require a certain number of inspections
Yep.
every year and so forth.
Okay. And to you, Marlene, I was really encouraged by your comments about opportunities for additional base funding applications for funding, one of which was the MOH, but you said that's one of 10 applications we will or may be submitting. Would this position, even though you're showing it as fully expensed against the levy between us and Alderman, would this be an eligible position at some point, and is that one of the applications you'll be submitting?
So through the mayor to Councillor Oliver, I just want to clarify that the one submission that I was referring to includes the medical officer of health, but it's actually just shy of $1 million to get us to the 75-25 cost share that we're currently at about 70-30. So that's the amount, which would include everything in this current budget. So if we were successful in that, then this particular NBI would be covered under that particular grant. There will be other grants. Actually 20 in total that staff have identified to move forward, 10 of them which are one-time funding grants and 10 of them which are base, well over $2 million. We haven't finalized all the numbers. Our financial advisor is currently working with us on that, but we will be asking for significant asks with this budget submission.
Thank you very much. Good questions there. Councillor Height, please.
I have a few on this one, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, and through to Ms. Taylor or Ms. Miranda. I see interdepartmental charges just doubled for your department. That's got to hurt. I'm on page 2, or that new sheet that we got.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, interdepartmental charges doubled. What caused that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Board of Health. The increase in interdepartmental charges actually relates to our restructuring. So if you go back through, there is a diagram that was handed around that shows how we've restructured our health unit and health and social services. And so what you would see if you looked at the bottom along there, it looks like we had a decrease in FTEs. So it looks like we went from 80.95 to 75.15 FTEs. Those FTEs have transferred to the QPAP section of our budget, and then what has happened is we get charged back for it through our interdepartmental charges, and that is to allow us to continue to receive the revenue streams that we receive from the provincial government.
Okay, thank you for that. And then I noticed the sheet that we were handed compared to the original sheet, it looks like services was the big change there. What was that all about?
So through the mayor to Councillor Height, there was an oversight in removing the medical officer of health salary from services, which was a contract or is currently a contract and now is actually in the salaries and benefits. So there was a duplication that was identified after print, and so that is the differential.
Okay, so what was the total amount? Sorry, I didn't calculate it all out myself. For that difference?
So through the mayor, the total is $86,000.
86,000. And was that documented as a motion or anything like that throughout this thing? Isn't this something you just brought forward right now?
So through the mayor, this was through the report that came forward in June to secure a full-time MOH at a 0.8, and the numbers were in there. And so it goes from being a contract to actually employing a full-time medical officer of health.
And this was in soon enough for these numbers here to be current, is what I'm getting at? I know there's changes sometimes as we go, but was it done before these numbers came forward? Because this is an addition. Or like a subtraction? Or was it just moved into another section?
Yeah. So through the mayor to Councillor Height, there was actually a duplication. So when it was added to the salaries and benefits as per the board's direction from the report in June, it was neglected to be removed from services. So we were actually incorporating it twice in the budget, and then we've removed it. And so that's why you see the 16.7% versus the original one that was provided to the board.
Okay. So I guess my last thing would be, I'm looking to make some reductions here because I think 16.7 is still really high, but I'd rather leave it to your discretion to do so. So if I determine a percentage number, would you be able to come back with a list of options for council? Like, I know as a councilor, I always hear from staff, oh, if you want to reduce spending, tell me what services you want to cut. My problem is nobody gives me a list of services, because I will make that decision if I had said list, but we never get said list.
So through the mayor to Councillor Height, we could do that. I will suggest that staff has gone through and removed any costs that we could. So we will be looking at service reductions, which potentially or likely will put us in a position of not fulfilling all of our required mandates. Quite honestly, we're putting in 20 proposals just to basically to enable us to provide all of the standards that we are not always on target with and to fulfill all of our requirements. And I would suggest to the board that even with those 20 grants that we're putting forward, we'd still not be at the service levels that we would like to see moving forward.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Brunton?
Thank you, Mayor Luke. And I